Okay, I'm going to answer those quiz questions on the integumentary system, and I have a hand-drawn diagram with me. So question number 1, using your diagram, describe the functions of each part of the integumentary system. So the system consists of basically 3 parts. So epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. So epidermis, this is the outer layer, outermost layer, as I showed, that covers and protects them. And the dermis can be a core of the system that has almost everything in it, like hair and glands and vessels. And hypodermis work mostly as a fat storage that provides the insulation. And this is the hair and hair follicles, and there is sweat glands and oil glands that just provide some oils that lubricates the skin and hair, that keeps them soft and supple. And this is a blood vessel related to provide the nutrients, and this is the sweat glands and just the sweat pore that is responsible for the excretion, and some lymph vessel is connected, and there is the colored part is the melanocyte, and that producing the melanin pigment that is responsible for the skin coloration and that protects from the UV radiation, UV light. And there is a basal cells put there, and then they produce the new skin cells, and the squamous cells at the outermost area. Squamous cells is kind of flat cells on the surface, and that keeps shedding as the new one forms. So that's it. And question number 2, explain the major differences between epidermis and dermis. Do they have any similarities? So epidermis is just the outer area, and that does not contain any blood vessels. But dermis has the blood vessels, the kind of thin network of vessels that called capillaries, and they also have some nerves, but while the epidermis doesn't have any nerves, and that the epidermis can be found in both plants and animals, but the dermis is only found in animals. And both of the epidermis and dermis both need the nutrient, but epidermis only get the nutrient and oxygen by kind of diffusion from dermis, but dermis has the vessel network there, the blood capillaries, they get the nutrient from them, the capillaries directly. So, and question number 3, humans living in areas closest to the equator have darker skin tones. So describe the evolutionary advantage to having darker skin. So darker skin is just enriched in the melanin pigment that act as a kind of natural sunscreen, the protecting against the UV radiation and sunburn, and it is also important preventing the folate deficiency. The folate, which so as the UV light just to degrade folate and folic acids, that is important in producing red blood cells, and that helps the baby development as well. So they just get to have a darker skin to get protection from those stuff. And number 4, explain how wounds heal over time, the major steps of healing. So the basic steps of wounds, the healing wounds major steps of wound healing. So first there is just stopping the bleeding. So it's called hemostasis. So the blood cells start to clot, so that prevents the blood loss, the more further blood loss and protects. And then there is a inflammation. So once it's clotted, and it just the blood vessels can open a little bit, so they can have more fresh nutrient or oxygen into the wounds for healing, more healing. And then there will be the new growth and strengthening, the rebuilding. So blood cells help build the new tissues as a well, scaffold, something that as a new cells, as new with the collagen. So they just keep building the new tissues that can be replaced with the old one. And so after the rebuilding, there will be strengthening. So over time, the new tissue gets stronger. Usually, it takes 3 months to rebuild. I mean, this gets strengthened. The wound gets almost as strong as the before, but it depends. The whole process can take like a year or two. So it depends. And piece number 5, tattoos are typically permanent throughout the human's lifespan. So explain the reasoning. So tattoo, just that needles lips through the epidermis, lip through the deep layer like epidermis, and that spills ink in the dermis. So it just lips through and then leaves the ink there, and then the immune system just reacts. I mean, they just think it's something attackers or anything, so they just send some blood, the immune cells. They just react and they send immune cells called macrophage, and so they just travel to the wound. And to remove those inks, they just eat up those inks, and they can't really do anything with it. I mean, it's too big to swallow up. So the ink is just the particles. It's just too big for them, the macrophage, to swallow. So they just can't do anything. So they just can't remove them. So the macrophage is just stuck with the ink inside and end up it end up visible through the skin, and they just got stuck in the dermis. So that's how the tattoo works. And question number 6, describe how skin cancer can occur in humans, and as well as the ways in which we can detect the cancerous growth of the skin. So skin cancer occurs when maybe it's the cell mutation basically in the DNA. So the mutation causes the cell to grow. They don't really go cell hypothesis. So they just grow out of control and form a mass. And how to identify, detect the cancerous growth. So there could be a skin exam. They look at the suspicious looking those skin, and they just check the size with the eye color and changing in the shape, how they change in the shape over time. And to check further, you can go through the biopsy just to remove the little sample for the testing lab to see what type of the cancerous cell it is. Yeah, that would be how to identify those cancerous growths.